Alright guys, what's going on and welcome back to Overunder. Today I want to bring you some gameplay of Zenyatta on the map Nepal. I want to try and embark a little bit of knowledge into your brain about this hero, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two from this gameplay. So it's going to be hard to discuss everything in this game specifically. There's just a lot to break down and digest, but I want to try and cover as much as I possibly can, and hopefully I do okay. But first things first, I guess you can talk about the Harmony Orb usage. I've got a Genji, I've got a Winston, I've got a Diva, and a Reaper at the moment. And the way I allocate my Harmony Orb target, at least in the very beginning of a game, is who is going to take damage first. I like to place it on heroes, more of a preventative measure, as opposed to a repairing tool, per se. You think of heroes like Mercy or I guess Mercy or Ana, where their healing is primarily used to repair damage, right? You don't think of it as a tool of aggression, but the Harmony Orb, I dare categorize it as an aggressive utility for healing, which is a strange concept now that I say it with words, but you want to chuck it on heroes like Genji, Tracer, Winston, people who are going to inevitably take damage, but also, you know, just get up in their face and deal damage as well. Obviously, Harmony Orb is quite effective for usage to actually repair health as well. Try not to neglect that too much, but my priority is to, as long as my allies obviously aren't dying and just completely neglecting them, I like to place it on heroes that are obviously getting up into their face and going to inevitably take damage. So you'll notice in this gameplay that my Harmony Orb target switches quite frequently, and in a more organized situation, I guess, you know, I'd be prioritizing my Genji the highest. I think between prioritizing heroes, I think Genji is the #1 priority for the Harmony Orb. The reason why I say that, like, Genji can be a hero, especially in the lower elos, that is extremely hard to kill for, you know, McCrees who can't, like, even I struggle against Genjis. Like, it's not just like some condescending statement that it takes McCree's long to kill Genji occasionally. Like, it happens at every single rating, not to mention pro games. So if you place a Harmony Orb onto your allied Genji, if they kill him slowly, he doesn't get killed, basically. And especially when he has an ultimate at the ready and or is using it, that is when the Harmony Orb needs to be on your Genji. You need to be looking out for that. I would have liked to Harmony Orb him more this game, but it was a little bit difficult to catch him. And if you have voice communication, I feel like this is a cool thing that I do. Like, I play with a Genji player as well, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I feel, you know, Zenyatta is strong, because I have a good Genji. But if you're a support player and you play with a Genji, basically what you want to do is get him to refresh the cooldown on the Harmony Orb. I believe it's 2 to 3 seconds. I can't remember which one it is, but let's pretend that it's 2 seconds. Let's just sit in this alternate reality where 2 seconds of line of sight breaking equals loss of Harmony Orb. What you want to do is to get your Genji to just double jump or whatever, just to restore that line of sight. That's like, between Tracer and Genji, obviously those two heroes benefit greatly from the Harmony Orb, but one advantage Genji has over Tracer is that his ability to restore the line of sight is very, very strong, and Tracer often gets lost in between, you know, different flank routes where she often drops the line of sight, and the Harmony Orb utility gets removed quite quickly. Let's pretend it's 2 seconds, alright? But I guess that's enough about Harmony Orb, but in general, prioritize obviously Genji's, flankers, stuff that's getting in the face, and obviously try to repair damage when possible. But, you know, that's the priority, of course. Get those Genjis in there, make sure they're safe. But the next thing I want to talk about is the usage of Transcendence, and I'll talk about Lucio and Zen as a combo. I feel like they're one of the strongest support duos when played together correctly, and they're not completely out of the meta. But a problem I see quite frequently is that if an enemy or a Genji Graviton or use Dragon Blade, what ends up happening is that both supports panic and they ult at the same time. I've seen this time and time again, and I will continue to see it into the future. You'll notice I keep my orb on my Genji as he throws his ultimate out there. But yeah, Lucios tend to panic in terms of graviton surges. They feel like their role is to, you know, negate the ultimate, give your allies extra health and make sure they survive, right? But they both serve a similar purpose defensively, but I feel like Zenyatta does it better, he does it faster, and he can get into position quicker due to Trance giving him extra movement speed. So if you have any form of communication and you're playing with the Lucio, you need to communicate that either if you're the Lucio or the Zen, you basically need to explain that the Zenyatta ultimate comes first, and after the Transcendence is over, the sound barrier, if needed, comes next. I think that's one of the strongest counters to Graviton Surge. If you can survive it, let's pretend that they don't Ana Grenade or Pulse Bomb, or just completely like Diva Ult or whatever situation. If you make sure that you coordinate that properly and it works out, like that is an effective counter to Graviton Surge. And specifically, you'll notice that the enemy Zarya Gravitons my Roadhog, and for a second I'm thinking, should I Transcendence to help my fat pig out? And this is kind of a more advanced tactic, which is kind of a weird way to phrase it, because it's just simply you not doing something, is to make a judgment call. Not every Graviton or every Dragon Blade requires you to use Transcendence, and if you have the ability to, you know, make that decision before it becomes deadly, try and make it. You know, hold that Transcendence if possible. If not, obviously just pop it. It's never realistically too bad of an idea to just pop Transcendence, especially if a lot of allies get caught in a Graviton. But for that situation where my Roadhog gets Gravitoned, you'll notice that directly after the Genji ultimates, and if I saved my Roadhog, you'll notice that that Graviton surge that didn't end up killing him in the first place, if I Transcendence that, what ends up happening is that Genji ult that came in directly after, that instead of doing nothing, could have potentially wiped my team. And one instance where a Lucio ultimate can be effective is if your Transcendence is obviously down. So communication between two supports is something that is always quite valuable, but when it comes to ultimate usage from Lucio and Zenyatta, like, I think that's the thing you need to communicate the most, if possible. It's very good and all to learn tips about the hero specifically, but I think specific references of communication are also important to know in terms of playing the hero more effectively. So another reason why I feel like Zenyatta is one of the strongest heroes for me, in particular as a support, is that if played correctly, his damage output can be pretty incredible. So throughout this game and throughout every single King of the Hill and or every game in general, I try to wind up his right click before peeking for the first time against the enemies. What this can do, it could net you a kill straight up, of course, but like, you can't bank on that happening. But what you can bank on is some fairly consistent damage that the enemy is going to not account for. You don't expect the Zenyatta to throw out, you know, 5, you know, projectiles that do 46 damage, and God forbid they headshot and double that. That is an amount of damage that a lot of people will not expect coming, and what this will allow you to do is to take the aggressive standpoint before the fight even begins. If you have a Winston, if you have a Genji, and they either know or you communicate that you've just hit a lot of orbs at one time, like, if they dive in, chances are they're going to lead up with the initial picks. And that, obviously, momentum in this game is massive. If you can gain it quite early on, that is huge. And that is one of the ways with Zenyatta that you can get it. So you'll notice that I use his right click a fair bit. I probably should have used it more this game, but like, you just burst targets so quickly. And when you do fire your right click, I like to kill... I do like to kill, but I like to try and keep the orbs concentrated on one pinpoint location. It can be tempting to just keep walking forward as you release them, but that decreases the accuracy a shit ton. The one exception to this is if you're seeing like an enemy soldier or any enemy moving in a very linear progression, like, it can be effective to just throw out the 5 ball and then move your mouse in the direction that they're heading, so that when they walk forwards, they're walking into your orbs, as opposed to you releasing them all at the same spot. And maybe you hit 1 or 2 of them, where if you trace them as you throw them, you can hit, 3, 4, or 5 of them and just kill them outright. That's one of the exceptions here. But in this game, my Lucio does a good job of holding his ultimate when I use my Transcendence, and then beating directly after. You'll see this is quite a strong combination, and you really need to just emphasize to your Lucio that you will trans first. On this account, I don't use any voice communication whatsoever, but this guy he was on the ball. He understood that trance comes first, and that's refreshing. I can't remember if I used it in the text chat or not, told him to hold off, but he did his job well, and you can just see for yourself how effective it is when you actually combine those ultimates together, because not only have the enemy used their aggressive ultimates already, by the time that your Transcendence is over, when your beat drop comes out, they just don't have that follow-up huge amount of damage that they were used to having. So they're up aggressively, you have a sound barrier on top of you, and you can now counter-initiate their engagement, and a lot of the times come out on top, like we did in that one in particular. But for the remaining duration of the video, I guess positioning on this hero, I guess I can talk about it a little bit. I like to sit in the mid lines, essentially. I don't like to backline too much with this hero, and obviously you never want to front line unless you're really the advantage is extremely in your favor, and you're confident that you can move forward. Zenyatta is a hero. If you're not getting focused at all, you'll notice that the enemies are just focusing my allies. You can get as aggressive as you possibly can, as long as you aren't getting targeted here. You see the Winston looks at me, but he's already dead. And try to avoid situations in terms of aggressive situations where you are if you know that the enemies are looking at you, that's when you need to back off a little bit. You're a 200 health little piece of shit flying in the air, and your hitbox is quite easy to hit if you're an enemy McCree or whatever. If you start tanking damage, if you drop below 150 health, that's a bit of a warning sign. But things like a McCree, a headshot will do 140 damage. If you start flirting below 140 health, and even 120, if you're below 120, a lot of things will kill you, like a Junkrat, a Mei headshot, Farah left click. A lot of projectiles in this game will start killing you around 120, 150 health. If you start tanking damage on Zenyatta, you're going to be in the death threshold, and that is not what you want to be. And generally, as Zenyatta, you want to die in situations where it wouldn't have mattered if you had 400 health, for instance. So think of this hero as something that, you obviously, on supports in general, you need to value your life. You need to put cover and your allies in front of you, or just headshot the dick out of the enemy Reaper. That's your two options, right? Position well, or just hope to shit that you hit 3 headshots in a row every single time. Because if you don't do one of those two things, you'll find yourself dying. And obviously as Zenyatta, you want to try and avoid that, as I do here. And I tried to kill this Mei. You'll be in this situation a few times, right? You're charging up a 5-ball shot, and you want to harmony somebody, and you have to sacrifice one or the other. I tend to favor charging up that extra shot and hopefully killing off the enemy, because realistically that 30 health per second isn't going to realistically win that engagement, where if you can burst someone before they can kill off your ally, then I feel like that's the stronger of the two options. But obviously different situations offer different solutions, but for that specific one, that was what I was going for. Unfortunately, you can't harmony orb while you charge with Zenyatta's right click. But anyway, to sum things up, Zenyatta, a very strong hero when played correctly. Positioning, obviously one of the most important things to focus on during this game. You'll see I trace that Reaper like I was talking about before with the extra charge up shots, but a very high amount of damage potential on this hero, a very high amount of healing potential, and if you work towards it and just nitpick at your own gameplay and just fight, trying to figure out better ways to stay alive and deal damage and heal your allies, Zenyatta can be quite a strong pick. In this game, I kind of lacked the 5th golden medal despite doing okay, but I think I'll take 4 for today, and I'd much rather be positioning a little bit better than getting that 5th golden medal, but who knows, maybe I wouldn't have gotten the 5th one due to the weaker positioning had I been standing on the point that whole time. But anyway guys, thank you for watching the video, hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.